But one thing about our God that both our text in Isaiah as well as the story of Jonah shows us is that God is sovereign. Let the church say sovereign. Many of us see this word in the Bible or we hear it mentioned in the church. What does it mean to be sovereign? Sovereign means that God has ultimate, complete, and absolute power and control. It means that nobody or nothing is God's equal. No one is God's authority. God answers to nobody and owes nobody a thing. This is what Isaiah means a few chapters earlier in Isaiah 40, 13 and 14 when he says, who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or who has been his counselor, or who has taught him? With whom did God take counsel? Who instructed God and taught God the path of justice? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding? Then a few verses later in verse 25, God rhetorically asks, to whom then will you compare me? Whom will be my equal, says the Lord. In other words, I'm the boss. I'm the boss. I run this thing, and nobody or nothing can match who I am, what I can do, or anything else about me, because I'm God, and I'm God all by myself. While many of us love to throw around the phrase, God is in control, the reality is that sometimes God's sovereignty can get on our nerves. Why? Because if God is truly in control, then that means that we are not in control. And whether we admit it or not, family, we often want to be in control. Can we be real? We often want to run the show. We often want to call the shots. On the one hand, we say, Lord, have your way. But on the other hand, we say we want to have our way. On the one hand, we say, Lord, yes to your will and to your way. But on the other hand, we're like, God, I want it this way at this time in this place. And we can't have it both ways. Because if we truly want God to have his way, we must realize that that often comes at the expense of our way. That's why God warns through the prophet Isaiah in verse 8, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. In other words, if you really want God to run this, then you're submitting to something that's the opposite of what you want. So if you want God to send you the mate that you want or the mate that you need, it might not be the person that you're looking at. If you want God to give you the job that you need, it might not be in the place that you want to go. If you want God to heal your relationship, he might do it in a way that causes you to admit that you're wrong and change in a way that you're not used to. Do you really know what you're asking for when you say, Lord, have your way? And this is important for us to remember because there are those who present God like he's some sort of genie or some sort of Santa Claus, and that life with God is just a bed of roses with no issues, no problems, no disappointments, and no trials, that God will give us everything that we want whenever we want it, and there's nothing we have to do. But family, the truth is that surrendering to God's way requires us to trust God even when life doesn't make sense. When life starts lifing, when mess starts happening, then we need to trust anyhow. Because many of us don't realize what we're saying when we tell God to have his way. Because sometimes God's way includes more waiting. Sometimes God's way includes more inconvenience. Sometimes God's way includes more unanswered questions. Sometimes God's way includes friends turning away, family stabbing us in the back, and life kicking our natural behind. Family, God having his way in our lives does not equal a life of ease for us. But sometimes God will take his time bringing us through these trials. I've learned that in my life, God will step in and God will make a way. But sometimes the Lord be taking his time. And I'm like, Lord, what's the hold up? Come on now. But God knows the time better than we do. And as I've said before, it's easy to trust God when the trials end quickly. But can we trust God when they last a little while? The choir just sang, it's all right, it's okay. It's easy to sing, it's okay when your gas tank is full, when the fridge is full, when you got money all in your account. But can you say it's okay when the account's in the negative? Can you say it's okay when your family's acting a fool? Can you say it's okay when you don't know when your next meal's coming from? Can you say it's okay when God is getting on your nerves? When days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and months turn into years, can we trust God when nothing seems to change, nothing seems to be getting better? Can we trust the Lord when he gets on our nerves?